Question number 1 of the PhilNITS FE morning portion of the exam. In this question, we are being asked which of the following is the prefix notation for the infix expression open parentheses, a minus b, closing parentheses, divided by, open parentheses, c plus d, closing parentheses, raised to the e. Here, the symbols plus, minus, divide, and raised to represent addition, subtraction, division, and exponentiation operators, respectively. We have here the choices, and I did end up choosing the correct answer, which is letter C, although I did have to think a bit about which one really is the correct answer because, first and foremost, I wasn't really too certain about the prefix notation. I remember reading something about that years and years ago, but I'm not too sure how it's going to be applied in this context. However, we do have some of the hints in this question, particularly with regard to the first symbol here. All of the choices have the same symbol, which is supposed to represent the raised to operator. And we know that operators are supposed to be these symbols, and if there are operators, there should be what we call operands. The operands are the values of A, B, C, D, and E. Now, if we do know that the first symbol is supposed to be the exponentiation or the raised to, what could be the next symbol? Now, what I did was to try out each of the choices to see if they make sense. If we have a certain pattern that we can observe and we apply it to the rest of the symbols and operands and operators, then would we get the same answer? As it turns out, B and A were not giving me the correct answer rather quickly, so I marked them as wrong. But if we are to investigate how I came up with that impression, well, if we look at B, for instance, if the pattern that we get says that you have first the raised to symbol here, the operator, and then the next one is minus, and then you have the two operands A and B that follow the minus sign, then it would be like this, minus AB, and then the next operator we get is divide, and then we get another operator which is plus, and then that's when we get the two operands. It seems like it's not not wrong because you have the C and D like this and the A and B like this, but if you have the divide here, then you have a difference in the pattern because there has to be a symbol, an operator first, and then you get two operands. But in this case, you get the answer for this one, which is an operand, and then an answer for this one, which is another operand, but you have the operator in the middle. So because of that, the pattern that we initially thought of doesn't apply anymore, which makes this wrong. The next choice is A, and if we look at the pattern again, it says here that after the raised to symbol, you have the E, and then you got the divide. Afterward, you got the plus sign, and then that's when you get the operands. for the plus, which are D and C. And if you make it into this form, it is like this. And then you get a minus and then a B and A, the two operands after. So you get something like this, B minus A. And if we look at the expression in the question, this is not supposed to be the correct expression anymore. And so this is wrong because it's supposed to be A minus B, not B minus A. And even if you think that maybe it's still okay, because if you look at it as negative B plus A, then you are supposed to be getting A minus B as well. However, if you consider the position of this expression, would it still be in the numerator? And the answer is no. So this one is incorrect. Now, letter D is kind of C actually. That's why it took me a while to decide. But in the end, it also failed to adhere to the pattern where you gotta have the operator first and then two operands after. So if our expression is like this, then you have the raised to and then E, and then we are expecting another operand, after. But here we have another operator, which is divide, and we get another operator, which is minus, and then that's when we get the two operands. So if we put them together, the two operands A and B, using the operator minus, we get this A minus B. And then before we go into the divide, we have another operator, which is plus, and then the two operands C and D. That's why we have here the C plus D. The answers to these two operands, then we can divide them. That's how we get here, this one. But because our operator is the raised to, and then the two operands are positioned in this way, E and then the answer to this, then based on the pattern that we are supposed to adhere to, the answer would result to E raised to whatever answer we get for the previous expressions, which is not the same anymore with our expression in the question. Now, if we look at C, C is the correct answer. And so if we go by with the same pattern again, where you have the operator and then two operands after, that's when you can put them together. So this one becomes A minus B. And then we have here a plus sign, which is another operator, but we don't have the operands yet. So we wait for the operands, and that's when we get the C and D here. That's why we got C plus D here. Now, when we put them together, we now have the divide and the two answers to the expressions previously. That's how we get something like this. A minus B divided by C plus D, where A minus B has parentheses, opening and closing, and then the divided by the expression C plus D also has the parentheses. And the crucial part here is that after the raised to, we get two operands. And the order here is that we have the answer to the previous expressions, and then the next operator is the e. So by following the same pattern, the operator is the raised to, and the first operand is put here before the raised to, and then after raised to, you have the second operand, which makes it the correct answer.